All right, guys. Can you all check now? Am I audible? Can you all hear me now? I think I've gotten this problem sorted, and you should be able to hear me now. Maybe a thumbs up, or just give me some acknowledgement as to whether you guys can hear me, so that we can proceed. We're already 9 minutes into the class, and such things must always happen. It's like the Shubharam that we have for our classes. Okay, lovely. All right. I hope you guys are doing very well. And although, this first 10 minutes of ours actually should have been, interacting and just talking about how's life and how things going and, all of that stuff. But now that we are almost past that introductory, the ice breaking that we were supposed to be having, why don't we just bounce on to the topic that we have? Now, the topic that we have at hand today, guys, is called Parajumbles. Good evening, everybody. We're past good evening also now. So let us now just get back to the topic. I would just want a couple of things from you guys. Now, since I see you guys are like super duper active on the chat box, if in case it so happens that, we're understanding a concept and that becomes alien for you, or you are just not able to understand what is it that I'm trying to explain, then at that point of time, you are to very quickly write it to me in the chat box so that I know and I can sort of, reiterate the topic for you, or I can help explain the topic to you guys better. Now, again, the topic that we're doing today is not very difficult. It's not the kind of topic with which, you might like have a lot of difficulty. And having said all of that, I also want to make it a point that, I say it out loud that this topic is also important, especially when we are preparing for our OLETs. What we have to do is we have to see which of the following topics are literally going to maximize our marks. And Parajumble, of course, since they're asked, they're asked a couple in number, which is why it becomes important for us to be able to know how the topic and the approach to the topic is. And of course, so that, whenever you have questions around Parajumbles, you know how to get to an answer and be very sure about it also. Competitive examinations के लिए जब भी तैयारी करते हैं, I think, gone with the days, or it's a very orthodox and a very conventional approach where you study anything and everything. Of course, you are to be studying everything that comes under the banner, but also what you should do is when it comes to practice, make sure that with every time you read or you pick up a topic, you gain mastery over it, right? For two good reasons. A, of course, knowing the fact that if something like this is going to be asked in your examination, you are just going to glide through that topic. That is, तुम्हें पता है उसको कैसे approach करना है. Second, in case you have practiced that topic well enough and you know कि यार ये topic तो नहीं होने वाला है मुझसे, then at that point of time what you are simply to do is you are supposed to know that अगर exam में ये आएगा, so I am not going to waste my time onto it, right? Because the moment you begin to waste even a little bit of your time, I know anxiety creeps in like a monster and it can take the best of us. So we are not going to get into any of these traps, any of these psychological traps that the examination tends to be giving us. Okay, now with all of that, let's move on to the topic that we have. The topic that we are doing today, guys, is called Parajumbles. If you just see the word para is nothing but a contraction. Contraction means a short form. So it's a contraction of the word paragraph. Jumble clearly means something which is not in a synchronized manner. So something which is not sequentially placed to you. So parajumble ideally become the type of questions in which there are a set of questions that have been given. Now, those sentences are not in the order they should have ideally been. Out of the options that you have, all what you are to do is read the options and see which of the following option is going to give you the most coherent, the most meaningful paragraph. Now, please note, guys, the reason why this exercise is called parajumble, that is a paragraph jumble in the first place, is because a minimum set of four statements are always given. Now, whenever you have four statements brought together in a chunk, the visual always allows us to denote that as a paragraph. So one random mention can be a sentence, maybe two could be two sentences, three could be a couple of sentences. But then the moment you have four sentences that are intact and put together, of course, the way we acknowledge those four sentences becomes a paragraph. Hence, the topic, the one that we're doing today, is called Parajumbles. Now, I have made a proper performer as to how should we be going. Now, I know that we are going to be going in this pattern, and also there is a little bit of theory that I'm going to be engaging in the first half. So it might just look like a monologue, although I'll try and be like a little interactive there in terms of giving random statements to you guys. But when it comes to the rules of the mandatory pair, I would really want you guys to pay absolute attention. So until there, what we will be doing is going to be a brief groundwork of what parajumbles are going to be. But when it comes to the rules of the mandatory pair, this is going to be the most important part, because parajumbles are not as much as much as about hard work as they are about strategy. So the moment you know how to ploy your strategy, the moment you know how the approach needs to be, you would never really go wrong with it. So this is the part where I would really want कि तुम लोग थोड़ा ज्यादा ध्यान दो, उसको अच्छे से सुनो, and be able to grasp, because the rules that we are going to talk are not just going to be random rules, or it's just not going to be a monologue. It is going to be applicable rules. So by saying applicable rules, I literally mean to say that whatever we are going to be now discussing can actually be put to paper. So if you get the theory well, implementation is not going to be difficult. But again, if you begin to not grasp as to the intention of these rules, then it could really be that parajumbles can be troubled waters for you. Okay. Now, we are going to begin with, of course, the introduction. We're going to understand the types of parajumbles that we have. We're then going to move on to the psyche and the approach. That is, what should be the mental temperament while approaching them. We then have the rules of the mandatory pairs, which are going to be the most important point. And then post that, I have taken some odd 15, 17 questions for practice, so that we're actually able to put all of these rules into application. And it's just not that we're just talking turkey. Getting on to the first part, which is, of course, introduction. Now, what exactly is a parajumble? If you just go back 2 minutes before in the introduction itself, we understood that PJs are nothing but a contraction of the term parajumble. So, what are parajumbles? They literally mean scrambled sentences. Scrambled, sabko pata hai na, upar niche. Something which is very gitch pitch. So, that means it is not in the order, it is not in the fashion in which it should have been. अगेन ओवर हियर पैराजम्बल्स में भी यही होता है, आपको 4 सेंटेंसेस दे सकते हैं, 5 दे सकते हैं, मे बी 6 दे सकते हैं, but all of these sentences are of course going to be the kind of sentences which are not in an orderly manner. All that they're seeking from us is that we're supposed to put it in the order that is required. Now, in the parajumbles question, candidates are given a set of related sentences. Now, please understand, guys, it's very important that we know that the sentences are always going to be related. That is, never ever be under the impression that while doing parajumbles, they are going to be random sentences given from random excerpts. No. Nor are they going to give you random sentences from random paragraphs. That's also not something that they're going to do. Wherever they give you the sentences from, they will have to give it to you from one consolidated paragraph only. They will not give it to you from one line from one paragraph, the second from the second, the third from the third, and likewise the fourth from the fourth. They cannot be doing that. Simply why? Because, say for example, if I get a 5 sentence parajumble, and if I'm not able to make an excess of information, that is, if I'm not able to, associate my sentences, or if there's no familiarity of information, जो transition ही swift नहीं है idea का, and I know that one idea is definitely not leading to the next, then what is going to happen is with 5 sentences, I can possibly have 125 permutations, which is a mammoth job. And of course, which one is going to be right? That's again, that's going to be the viewer's discretion or the person who's doing it. क्योंकि उस इंसान ने जिस तरीके से फ्रेमवर्क बनाया उस आइडिया का, उसको वैसे ही लगेगा. Which is why parajumbles कभी भी distorted तरीके से नहीं देते हैं. So if I have a page over here, all what I'm trying to say is that if I have a paragraph over here, and then if I have another paragraph over here, and then if I have another paragraph over here, in a parajumble, they're never going to give you 1 line from here, 2 lines from here, and 1 line from here. No. Wherever they give it to you from. Now, what is not important is कहाँ से देंगे. अब कोई ऐसा conventional rule या just to amp up the game a little, थोड़ा सा they want to dial up our challenge. So which is why they're never ever going to give you from the start until the end. Well, they might, but most of the times they wouldn't really. So what is not of guarantee is कहाँ से देंगे. But what is definitely of guarantee is jahan se bhi denge, wherever they give it to you from, they have to give you consolidated statements only. So if they were to give me a parajumble from this excerpt, the one that I have pictorially drawn, then at that point of time, no, if they were to be given, if they were to be giving me four sentences, they have to give it to me from this paragraph only, or maybe this paragraph, or maybe this paragraph. It cannot be random paragraphs. क्यों? क्योंकि अगर मुझे कोई सीरीज बनानी है तो लगी में लगी इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए होगी ना. माई सेंटेंस शुड बी एबल टू हिंट व्हाट इज गोइंग टू कम नेक्स्ट. Likewise, the second sentence should be able to hint what is going to come further. If they give me just random sentences, I will never be able to identify what the correct sequence is supposed to be. Right? Simple है. तुम लोग सब मूवी देख के आए. मूवी में अगर मैंने तुम्हें 5 रैंडम सीन्स दे दिए, एक स्टार्ट से, एक इंटरमिशन से, एक एंड से, एक बीच से, एंड मे बी एक समवेयर बिटवीन 20 मिनट्स इनटू द मूवी. And then if I tell you that why don't you make a series of how do you think the events went. Now different people can have different ways of arranging that information. You will only be able to sequentially arrange it when I give it to you from the same span of time. So maybe मैंने इंटरमिशन के पहले के आपको 4 सीन्स दिए, तभी तो आप बना पाओगे ना उसकी सीरीज क्या होती है. बिकॉज ओनली वन सीन विच इज हैपनिंग विल बी एबल टू हेल्प यू नो और एंटिसिपेट कि भाई अगला सीन क्या लगने वाला है. लाइकवाइज वही एंटिसिपेट कर पाएगा कि उसके बाद क्या लगने वाला है. सो getting back to parajumbles are always going to be related sentences, guys. They are never ever going to be कुछ भी कहीं से भी नहीं दे देंगे. सो दे नॉट गोइंग टू लिटरली प्ले बुक क्रिकेट कि कोई भी पेज उठा लिया, ओ दिस इज लाइक अ लाइन, इसको दे देते. एक ही पैराग्राफ से कहीं से भी देंगे, कंसेक्यूटिव लाइन देंगे. कंसेक्यूटिव मतलब एक के बाद एक के बाद एक के बाद एक. Okay, so candidates have to read each of the sentences and arrange them sequentially. So you have to ensure that there is a proper sequence that you are making. Sequence का मतलब है the information must be placed in such a manner that they allow all the rules of grammar and sense, that is logic, to play fair and ultimately make the paragraph coherent and meaningful. So what we are to note, or what something that we have to be careful about, is Parajumbles is not jumbling paragraph here, but we're actually straightening out jumbled sentences in a paragraph. So a parajumble does not mean that you're supposed to take the paragraph and just sort of distort it. An already distorted sentence has been given to you. All what you are to do is you're just supposed to put it in alignment. Put it in alignment मतलब एक के बाद एक क्या आने वाला है, that is what is required. Now, why has parajumble become such an important topic, or why has it become such a popular topic for us? Simply because it is a thorough test of our comprehension skill. Comprehension comes from the word comprehend, which means to understand. So it is one of the litmus tests. It is one of those very, very go-to tricks or rules, that can be applied by anybody to be able to see how well can you understand the text that has been given. Now, moving on to what are the different types of parajumbles. Now, guys, ideally, there are two distinct topics, but a lot of time, both of the topics can be merged into one. So we have something which is called a sentence jumble, right? And then, of course, we have something which is called a parajumble. Now, there is only a visual difference between the two. The fact that if it has to be a sentence jumble, then always know that in a sentence jumble, since this is singular in nature, तो sentence jumble में क्या देंगे वो लोग आपको एक sentence देंगे बस, and this sentence is going to be broken up into 4 parts and labeled as A, B, C, D. You will then have 4 options जिसमें क्या करेंगे वो लोग अलग अलग टाइप के आपको permutations देंगे. They're going to give you different combinations. You have to see which of the following is going to make the most meaningful sentence. So again, the idea remains the same. In sentence jumble also, what we're doing is we're jumbling. But what the performer is restricted to just one singular sentence. While a parajumble is nothing but a culmination of minimum 4 sentences, maximum 6. Which is why distinctly हमारे पास 3 कैटेगरी के या 3 टाइप्स के पैराजम्बल होते हैं. एक होता है हमारा 4 सेंटेंस पीजे, एक होता है हमारा 5 सेंटेंस पीजे, एंड एक होता है हमारा जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं 6 सेंटेंस पीजे. 4 सेंटेंस पीजे आइडियली वो टाइप के पैराजम्बल्स होते हैं जिसमें आपको सिर्फ 4 रैंडम सेंटेंसेस दे देते हैं and you are to design a series for it. That is, of course, it has to be a meaningful sequence. A 5 sentence parajumble can be asked in 2 ways. या तो वो आपको 5 sentences दे देंगे 4 के बदले. So they might just give you 5 sentences. Or what they're going to do is they're going to give the first sentence or the last sentence in its original position. Original position का मतलब होता है you cannot move that. Whatever be the kind of sequence that you make for the remaining sentences, they have to go in tandem with, they have to go hand in hand with the original idea. So it's like that is a frozen sentence. उसको हम लोग नहीं हिला सकते हैं. आपको बाकी sentences को इस तरीके से rearrange करना है that all of the 5 sentences make sense. Getting on to a 6 sentence PJ. A 6 sentence PJ classically is a more elevated version of a 5 sentence PJ, in which what happens is now the first sentence and the last sentence is already given in its designated position. That is, आप ना इसको हिला सकते हो ना इसको हिला सकते हो. बीच में आपको देंगे 4 sentences. You have to make a series with these 4 sentences in such a manner that when read, all the 6 sentences together make a coherent paragraph. So again, it's like a sandwich parajumble. Sandwich parajumble, why? Because नीचे और ऊपर दोनों की lines वही दी है, उनको हम लोग नहीं move कर सकते. You cannot move them. You just have to, make a sequence, or you just have to shuffle. बीच के जो 4 lines है इस तरीके से कि छेओ की छेओ sentences begins to make sense. Now, guys, a very important thing while doing 6 sentence PJs, and this is like there's like a disclaimer that I'd like to give. When you do a 6 sentence PJ, please know that it is not just the arrangement of the 4 sentences in between that is, completing your job. Because a lot of times ये 4 sentence तो sequence में बैठ जाते हैं, जैसे भी आपने लगाया है. But जब आप 6 को साथ में पढ़ते हो, at that point of time, they don't make the right sense. Which is why while doing maybe a 5 sentence PJ, the one with a designated line, or a 6 sentence PJ, what is very, very important for you to keep or to remember is the fact that whatever you design as a sequence, you have to read all the 6 sentences together. 6 को साथ में पढ़ो ताकि पता चले कि if all of the 6 sentences make sense or not. Now that we have understood the types of parajumbles that we can have, let us now move on to a very important part, which is one of the, how do I put it? It's not like a particular rule, but it's just something that I need to mention. Now, when it comes to parajumbles, of course, the rules of the mandatory pair make our life a lot more easier. मतलब अगर हमारे पास रूल्स होते हैं मैंडेटरी पेयर्स के तो हमारा आंसर ऐसे मिल जाता है बिकॉज पैराजम्बल में दिमाग हमेशा तब सही लगता है व्हेन वी चेज द पेयर्स फर्स्ट एंड नॉट द सीक्वेंस. अगर आपने जोड़े बना लिए ना अपने, दैट इज द मोमेंट यू नो कि ओके बोथ ऑफ दीज 2 sentences have to come together, then you can simply go to the options, play a little with the options and see okay which of the option has that pair. A lot of times, and to our how do I put it, to our luck, there's only one option जिसमें वो जोड़ा होता है and you know the answer right away. But there is another approach to parajumble. So there are a lot of students who don't want to be applying the rules of the mandatory pair. उनको नहीं लगाना. फिर how else can you approach a parajumble? Now parajumble is nothing but an extension or a variant of communication. Right? Communication के 2 types होते हैं. तो हमारे पास होता है something that is called written communication. And then we have something which is called a verbal communication. What I'm doing with you right now is verbal. Had I not been here and I would have just given you everything, on the PPT, it would have been a written mode of communication. But whatever be the mode of communication, intention हमेशा same रहता है. The intention is always to make sure that the person who is speaking is able to give out the idea and the person who is receiving this piece of information is able to understand. Right? It's simple. मेरे बोलने का फायदा ही क्या जब तुम लोग समझ नहीं पा रहे हो. Right? तो communication का एक ही end होता है. The goal of communication simply remains that the person to whom the information is being given, that is the receiver, the listener, or the person who is, the person who is acknowledging that piece of information, उस बंदे को समझ में आ जाए कि भाई बोला क्या जा रहा है. Which is why 2 mediums can be employed. एक होता है written like I said, एक होता है verbal. Whatever said and done, if there is any interrogation that comes in the mind of the reader or in the mind of the person who is receiving that information. Interrogation का मतलब होता है why, what, when, how, where, which. तो अगर इनमें से कोई भी क्वेश्चन अगर आ गया ना जो रिसीवर है उसके दिमाग में, then at that point of time we understand that your communication was paralyzed. Your communication was not complete in its nature. Now, the beauty of verbal mode is that when you're giving out the information, information is coming along, it's coming along with a voice. क्योंकि वॉइस भी साथ में होती है इसीलिए बंदे को समझ में ज्यादा अच्छे से आता है. So you guys are able to grasp what is being said a lot better simply because you're not only listening to what I'm saying, you are also listening to how I'm saying. And another convenience with the verbal mode is the fact that the person who's giving out this information is there in front of you. तो आपको जहां कोई चीज समझ में नहीं आती आप क्या कर सकते हो, यू कैन जस्ट प्रेस द पॉज बटन एंड यूड बी लाइक प्लीज एक बार ये समझा दो ये कैसे हो गया वो कैसे हो गया. Written mode, however, is a little paralyzed in nature. By saying paralyzed, what I mean to say is that the person who is giving out that piece of information is not there. क्योंकि वो बंदा है ही नहीं. Which is why it becomes all the more important for us that we give out the information in the most proctored manner. That is, हम लोग बहुत ही अच्छे से लेआउट करके इंफॉर्मेशन को दे ताकि जो रिसीव कर रहा है इंफॉर्मेशन उसके दिमाग में एक भी इंटेरोगेशन ना आए. And for making sure that the information is well received, the fact that you understand every bit of what is being said, communication comes with two etiquettes. तो दो मैनरिज्म्स होते हैं. देयर आर टू मैनरिज्म्स और एटिकेट्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन. स्टार्टिंग विथ फर्स्ट, इंफॉर्मेशन मस्ट ऑलवेज बी इन अ नेक्सस. नेक्सस का मतलब होता है बगल बगल एंड इंटर रिलेटेड. सो इंफॉर्मेशन रैंडम नहीं होनी चाहिए. नाउ आई एम गोइंग टू टेक अ लाइव एग्जांपल सो दैट यू गाइस अंडरस्टैंड बेटर. तुम सबने एग्जाम्स लिखे और एग्जाम्स में आंसर्स लिखे. पूरा तो रट के हम लोग जाते नहीं है. नाउ फॉर एवरी टाइम वी पिक अप द पेन टू राइट एन आंसर, you write a certain idea. The line that you write after that idea. Now, honestly, cross your hearts and tell me, अगली line जो हम लिखते हैं, वो connected होती है previous idea से कि random रहती है? Do you think it is just a random idea that we have written? Or does it have its hint and it has a little bit of familiarity with the previously mentioned idea? Clearly, it has something to do with the previously mentioned idea. Because if you write a sentence A and लगे से लगा B नहीं होगा, तो जो बंदा पढ़ रहा है उसको लगेगा यार अभी तो कुछ बात कर रहा था अब एकदम से उसने कुछ और ही बात कर दी. So that is going to baffle the person. The person is going to be caught by surprise. भाई वो बोलने की क्या कोशिश कर रहा है, मुद्दा तो क्लियर हो जाए. Which is why communication says that when you start to talk about something, the next idea has to go in relationship with the previous idea. Familiarity of information is very important. तभी तो interest develop होगा, तभी तो बंदा anticipate कर पाएगा कि वो क्या बोलने की कोशिश कर रहा है. So this is what the word nexus means. Now, every time we talk about any sort of communication, we have to make sure that all of the lines are in familiarity with each other. So, say for example, अगर आपको Parajumbles में अपने mandatory pairs नहीं लगाने हैं, तो how can you employ this rule? It's very simple. You read all the lines and then you see कौन सी दो बातें हैं जो आपको समझ में आ रहा है यार ये तो लगी में लगी है. That is, अगर ये हुआ है तो इसके बाद तो ये होना ही होना है. And then you can just handpick those two sentences and keep it aside. We will then see how the options can, work for us. But over here, what we are simply to do is, we're simply supposed to just associate both of those two sentences together. What is going to be the first opener, what is going to be the closure, वो सब बात की बात है. But जैसे ही मैंने पढ़ा, मुझे समझ में आ गया अगर एक लाइन है सीता is going to the park, and then I have another line that says she's playing, तो मुझे पता है playing तो park में ही होगा ना. तो मैंने क्या किया उन दोनों को साथ में ले लिया. बिकॉज ओनली व्हेन शी गोज टू द पार्क कैन शी प्ले, राइट? ओनली व्हेन वन थिंग हैपेंस कैन द अदर हैपन. सो दिस फेमिलियरिटी, वन थिंग इज लीडिंग टू द अदर. द सेंटेंसेस आर इंटरकनेक्टेड. सो दिस इज व्हाट इज द वर्ड नेक्सस. सो आवर कम्युनिकेशन रूल सिंपली सेज दैट इंफॉर्मेशन मस्ट ऑलवेज बी इन अ नेक्सस. हमेशा जुड़ी में जुड़ी होनी चाहिए. सेकेंड जो रूल है हमारा वो बोलता है only after finishing our talk on a singular subject must you proceed to the next. Now, again, तुम सबने आंसर्स लिखे. अब जब हम लोग आंसर्स लिखते हैं तो से फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर मैं राम के बारे में बात कर रही हूँ, तो क्या एकदम से सेकंड लाइन सीता पे हो सकती है, एकदम से थर्ड लाइन शाम पे हो सकती है, एकदम से फोर्थ लाइन गीता पे हो सकती है, एंड देन क्या वापस से फिफ्थ लाइन राम पे हो सकती है? इट्स नॉट राइट। ये इतना ज्यादा हैफिजार्ड इंफॉर्मेशन इज नॉट राइट कम्युनिकेशन। तो कम्युनिकेशन क्या बोलता है? आप राम पे बात कर रहे हो ना, अब जितनी बातें राम पे है करके खत्म करो, वंस एंड फॉर ऑल राम से निकलो सीता पे, और फिर वहां पे बात करो। Then once you finish talking about Sita, maybe then you can move on to the next. But there is no reason for you to jumble. That is, एक पे बात की, फिर you jump on to the next, then you jump on to the third. No, that's not how you do. So now, parajumbles भी जब हम लोग करते हैं, and when you do not want to apply the mandatory pairs, you can also cross check via this. So you read all the sentences, guys. See, I'm stressing a lot. आपको सबसे पहले सारे sentences read करने पड़ेंगे. If you think that there is a shortcut and that you can go away without reading the sentences, no, that cannot happen. So the first thing is going to be that you are going to read all of the sentences. And जैसे ही आपको दिखता है कि अच्छा यहाँ इस sentence 1 और sentence 3 में दोनों में राम की बात हो रही है, बस 1 और 3 को अलग रख लो। मुझे नहीं पता 1 और 3 होगा कि 3 और 1 होगा, पर मुझे इतना तो 100% पता है कि ये दोनों को आना साथ में ही है। मतलब इन दोनों के बीच में कुछ नहीं आ सकता, क्योंकि भाई दोनों ही तो राम पे बात कर रहे हैं। So this is what is meant by concentrating on one subject and then transitioning on to the other. So if you just keep these two rules of communication up and alive, that is, if you're very alert about these two things, then half of our miseries of parajumbles, मतलब जितने हमारे troubles होते हैं ना, उसमें से 50% are already dealt with. But yes, these are going to be two things that you have to be very, very conscious about and very aware about. और ये सब सिर्फ तभी आएगा जब हम लोग बहुत ध्यान से, very meticulously हम लोग information को पढ़ेंगे. If you just, browse through the information and if you don't pay attention to those little things, then clearly what is going to happen is you might slip onto these words. And also, so this is my personal trick that I'm telling you. जब भी आप लोग कुछ भी करो ना, be it RCs, be it parajumbles, guys, scribble. Scribble मतलब वहां पे underline करो. Let your paper be a little dirty. जब आप scribble करते हो ना, it shows or it becomes a very reflection of the fact that you have interacted with that sheet. When you just keep it very neat and clean, we simply feel that, or we get the idea that you have read, but you have not really delved into the idea. And which is why superficial reading कभी भी काम नहीं करती है. So just be a little more, involved while reading. Okay, now getting on to the next part, which is what is the approach. Now, the ideal way, so something that I have briefly mentioned previously also. So, the process of parajumbles is always, सबसे पहले you are going to scan. Scan का मतलब है read all the sentences. Don't just read one or two or random sentences. No, सबसे पहले आप सारे पढ़ो. और जैसे ही पढ़ो ना, common words को underline कर लो. Just read it all. Then identify. Identify is clearly which are going to be the common words. Now, the moment you see कि अच्छा statement 1 कुछ बोल रहा है and statement C में भी she करके है, और मुझे पता चल रहा है कि पूरे sentence में she तो एक ही लड़की है जो 1 में थी, तो मुझे पता है कि 1 और 3 बगल बगल आने वाले. Because rule of communication बोलता है कि जब एक मुद्दे पे बात करना चालू कर दिया, when we have begun talking on a subject, we must finish everything that we want to talk about that subject. Next, if you have the habit of chasing a sequence while doing parajumbles, you are doing the wrong way. So the correct methodology is always to make a pair, because जैसे ही pair बन गया, sequence अपने आप आ जाएगा. But जब तक pair नहीं बनेगा, sequence के permutation कितने सारे हो सकते हैं. Just try and imagine. Now, thankfully हमें theta version नहीं मिलता. Theta version जब हमें options नहीं होते, हमारे पास options है. So we can of course be a little more eased out. But again, how can you get quicker while making your options? That can be by ensuring that जोड़े आपके पास already है. And once you have the pair, you go to the options for elimination. अब आप देख लो कितने options में वो जोड़े हैं कि नहीं है. अगर मैं एकदम confident हूँ कि 1 और 3 तो साथ में ही है, then I'm going to see A और C कितनों में साथ में. अगर किसी भी option में साथ में नहीं और एक ही में है, तो I have my answer. Then what am I going to do? I'm going to dissolve that series, read it in the option, and then just sort of, double check, like an authentication. कि एक बार देख लेते हैं फटाफट कि वो क्या है, and that's about it. Voila, you have the answer to yourself. right? And the last should always be the sequence. Now, a parajumble will always be given from a singular para only, not from different paragraphs. Cut to, let's jump to our start. While we were doing our introduction, I very specifically mentioned this. Parajumble में एक एक लाइन अलग अलग पैराग्राफ से नहीं देंगे, एक ही का देंगे. क्यों? क्योंकि like I said, अगर ये हमारी शीट है और ये हमारी इंफॉर्मेशन है, सो एक लाइन यहाँ की, एक यहाँ की, एक यहाँ की नहीं दे सकते. जहां से भी देंगे एकजुट लाइंस देंगे, तो एक साथ की देंगे. क्यों? क्योंकि जो चीज यहाँ लिखी है उसी से जुड़े में जुड़ी तो यहाँ की आप ढूंढोगे ना. लाइकवाइज जो चीज सेकंड स्टेटमेंट में, उसी का तो कनेक्टिंग लाइन यहाँ होगा. एंड लाइकवाइज जो चीज यहाँ पे, उसी का कनेक्टिंग यहाँ होगा. If they give you random sentences, how will you ever be able to find how the storyline is or how exactly is the idea evolving? Which is why wherever they give it from, it has to be from a singular excerpt or a singular paragraph only. Next, a PJ does not necessarily have to be a start of an excerpt. Now, always know, guys, जरूरी नहीं है कि आपका पैराजम्बल स्टार्टिंग ऑफ द टॉपिक से ही देंगे, कहीं से भी दे सकते हैं, राइट? सो अगेन समथिंग दैट वी डिस्कस्ड, कहां से देंगे नहीं पता, बट जहां से देंगे एकजुट लाइंस ही देंगे. दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू गिव यू रैंडम लाइंस. First attempt should always be to read all sentences. You gotta read all of the sentences. You cannot just read one and let go of it. You will have to read all to be able to know. Mark, underline all similar words. Again, something that we just talked about. There is a connection there. Explore via options. Parajumbles is about smart work, not hard work. It's not about कौन सी लाइन कब आई, कहाँ किया, वो सब मेहनत नहीं करनी हमको. हमें जो मेहनत करनी है वो बस ये है कि पहले फट से हमने अपने पेयर्स ढूंढ लिए. जैसे पेयर ढूंढ लिए, just go to the options and see if that is doing your job. If it is not doing your job, maybe we'll go back and we'll try and make another pair. But once you have the pairs, you at least have a head start. You know how to be going ahead with it. Now, the next and now is where the important information starts. Now, while doing our parajumbles, I have stressed enough on the fact that while doing parajumbles, आपको हमेशा अपने mandatory pairs ढूंढने चाहिए. But what exactly are these mandatory pairs? The word mandatory means compulsory, pair means two. Which simply means अब trios भी मिल सकते हैं, आपको 3 statements भी मिल सकते हैं. But we just assume कि अगर 2 भी मिल जाएंगे ना, तो हमारा आधा खेल वहीं खत्म है. इनफैक्ट कभी कभी पूरा भी हो जाता है. So then, what are mandatory pairs? Mandatory pairs are going to be those 2 sentences जो hands down एक साथ ही आने हैं. That is with 100% guarantee. We can say that both of those 2 statements have to come next to each other. Now, what we're now going to start discussing are going to be the rules. Quickly, let's just glance through this rule. Now, here is the important part. Let's just glance to the rules so that you know, and then we can move on to the questions to be able to see कि हम इन options को कैसे actually में apply भी करेंगे. Now, starting with the first. The first rule simply is the rule of an obvious opener. Now, जब भी आप सारे sentences को पढ़ते हो ना, आपको समझ में आ जाएगा कि यार किस टाइप की थीम के बारे में बात हो रही है. What is the kind of structuring that is being talked about? And a lot of times, if you're lucky, you will always find that one sentence which is going to be very generic, very welcoming in its nature, and you're going to see that it is going to talk about all of the things that the following lines seem to be talking about. So जैसे अगर मैंने कोई स्टोरी बुक उठाई नहीं आती, long time ago there lived a king. So I know कि भाई ये इंट्रोडक्शन है. Likewise, अगर मुझे बात करना है, COVID-19 has been one of the most deadly disease the pandemic, the previous years have ever seen. And then if I see that all of the others are also going to be, they're going to be related to COVID-19, then I know this is like an opener. It's a very generic statement. It's a very introductory statement. It's the kind of statement, which is giving us our first glimpse of what the following information is likely to be. So the first thing you must do is look for your obvious opener. अब आप लोग obvious openers कैसे देखोगे? You guys are going to explore the options. So if you have A, B, C, D, and then option A मेरा A से start हो रहा है, B मेरा C से start हो रहा है, फिर C मेरा A से start हो रहा है और D मेरा C से start हो रहा है, तो मैं क्या करूंगी? मैं quickly explore कर लूंगी A and C. And between A and C, I will make a choice. Now, why do I have to do that? Because however inclined I be to the other two options. I know वो options तो हो ही नहीं सकते ना क्योंकि choose तो मुझे चार ही options से करना है. So this is what is an obvious opener. So in a parajumble, you'll want to find the line that most clearly introduces a person, place, committee, or concept to the reader. This is probably going to be the first sentence. Now that you've found your obvious opener, कभी कभी इतने में ही हमें आंसर मिल जाता है. Because maybe three sentences can have one sort of opener और एक में एकदम ही अलग होता है और वही हमारा आंसर हो जाता है. So kabhi kabhi opener can also just be, like an easy glide to what the correct answer is going to be. Getting on to the next rule is the rule of noun pronoun. Now, grammar guys somehow always says that whenever there is a transition of sentences, then the rule or the kind of respect that is given to nouns precedes any other. तो कभी भी हम लोग किसी भी चीज में पहले प्रोनाउन नहीं लिख सकते फिर नाउन. So it's like I can't say he is playing and then say, oh sorry, I forgot वो he तो राम है. It always has to be Ram and then I must talk about he. So the noun pronoun rule simply says that when you see a certain noun and you know that okay this noun can actually account for the pronoun which has been talked about, इन दोनों का तो जोड़ा होना है. क्यों? क्योंकि मेरा रूल कहता है कि जब एक सब्जेक्ट पे बात करो तो उस सब्जेक्ट पे जितनी बात करनी है खत्म करो उसके बाद ही आगे बढ़ो. So if I have a sentence about Ram and then I have the other sentence which is three lines later and talking about he or his, I know ये his एक ही लड़का है पूरे लाइन में and that has to be Ram. So I know both of those two have to come together. And this rule does not fixate itself to only names. This can even be for demonstrative pronouns or anything for that matter. Because pronouns are words that replace or substitute a noun. So by definition, they are definitely assistants of noun. तो assistant तो बाद में आएगा ना, जब पहले हम लोग main player की बात कर देंगे उसके बाद ही आ सकता है. It can never come before that. So now over here, when you see two sentences, you simply know that this is how it is supposed to be. So if I have a sentence that says India is a heterogeneous country with very diversified, let's put it like this, and has cultural, religious, and spiritual diversity, something of that sort. And then later on, I have a sentence that says it also has a varied landscape. So अगर मैंने वो it देखा and मुझे पता है कि वो it क्या है, that it can straight away go back to India. Then I know this has to be together. Because only when I can talk about India can I have a pronoun which is now going to substitute. So whenever you see noun pronouns, always be very sure about the fact that if you can authenticate that that pronoun is going to substitute for that noun, they have to be a pair. They have to belong together. So the basic rule of noun pronoun is that noun always comes first. So whenever there's a pronoun in the sentence, first thing is to fix the noun and then fix both the sentences together. Getting on to the next rule is called the rule of cause effect. Cause effect are the kind of sentences in which the first sentence is going to tell you the reason and the subsequent sentence, that is uske lage mein laga jo sentence hoga, that is going to tell you the reaction or it is going to tell you the consequence of what happened in the previous sentence. Now, effect और cause का combination कभी नहीं होता. That is, effect never precedes the cause. For the simple reason why, because अगर again, for example, अगर मैंने आप लोग को बोला कि guys मेरी तबीयत बहुत ज्यादा खराब है, मुझे बुखार है, तो you guys are going to be asking me क्या हुआ, कैसे हुआ. Now go back to when we talked about the fact that अगर कोई भी interrogation comes in the mind of the reader, it is supposed to be bad habit. So when you say that, why, what, where, when, it is not supposed to be considered to be complete information. So now if I say the effect first, then you guys are of course going to probe. You guys are going to be like, ये कैसे हुआ, ये क्यों हुआ? But vice versa, अगर मैंने आप लोग को ये बोल दिया कि guys कल रात में बहुत बारिश हो रही थी और मैं भीग गई और अब मुझे बुखार है. So now you guys are simply going to tell me, ma'am, please take care. Because now the cause was enough for you guys to know how the build-up happened. If you place the effect before the cause, you begin to naturally probe, and that is not the right arrangement. So अगर मेरे पास एक sentence है जो बोलता है कि the public went really berserk and started pelting stones on the buses, and then दो line छोड़ के मेरे पास एक line है that the minister gave a very agitating communal speech. तो आई कैन पुट बोथ ऑफ दीज टू सेंटेंसेस टुगेदर इन टर्म्स ऑफ कॉज इफेक्ट. क्यों? क्योंकि जब मिनिस्टर ने एजिटेटेड स्पीच दी, उसी से तो भड़क के लोगों ने स्टोन पेल्टिंग की, पब्लिक वेंट बजर्क. पब्लिक ऐसे ही थोड़ी बजर्क हो जाएगी. देयर हैज टू बी अ कॉज फॉर दिस इफेक्ट टू कम इन. So both of these, so they will always establish a relationship between the two. If you spot two of those sentences together, you must always place them together. So in this, you should check whether there is a cause-effect relationship. If the answer is yes, they will seem as one after the other, that is one leading to the next. For example, say for example, if then, जब ये होगा तभी वो होगा. Whenever, because, तो ये सब, these are all conjunctions that are used to be able to tell why the previous thing happened, right? The cause is, when and then, the reason is. So these are some keywords that you can always use. Getting on to the next, acronyms and hints. Acronyms are short forms. अगर आपको ये दिख रहा है that I have a line that is talking about, say, UN, and then you know that UN is a short form for United Nations. एंड आपको ये दिख रहा है कि कोई एक लाइन है जिसमें पूरी की पूरी यूनाइटेड नेशंस लिखी हुई है. You should always know that the full form or the entire name comes first. Only then can you use an acronym. So if I have a sentence that talks about Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, then I have a sentence that talks about Mr. Bachchan, and then I have a sentence that talks about he. So shall be the series. It has to go as Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, and then he. You cannot start with the second name first. Likewise, मेरे पास जब UN है and मैंने देख लिया कि oh we are talking about the United Nation, then at that point of time I will first speak about the United Nation and then mention UN, and this is not supposed to go vice versa. So acronyms and hints basically say out of all of this is very crucial as it uses both short forms and full forms. If there is a full form as well as a short form, then you need to first take the sentence with the full form clearly, and always then comes the abbreviation. It cannot be vice versa. Next, chronology. Chronology basically means a timestamp. It basically means that if that there is going to be a there's going to be a routine, there is going to be a sequence of how something tends to happen. Now, when you read the sentences, of course, you are not supposed to leave logic at home. You are supposed to be applying your logic also to be able to know what is it that the ideas are trying to portray. So whenever you have the 4 sentences or the 5 sentences to yourself, then at that point of time, you must see that if you are able to eventfully put the sentences together, that is, if you're able to put some sort of time sequence or some sort of, date sequence, then logic will prevail and your sentences must take the chronology. तो अगर मैंने आप लोग से पूछा कि गाइस अपने दिन का रूटीन बताना मुझे जरा, सो यू आर नॉट गोइंग टू बिगिन विद मैम मैं सोता इतने बजे था, मैं उठता इतने बजे था, मैं दोपहर में ये करता हूँ, फिर मैं शाम को ये करता हूँ. नो, दैट्स नॉट व्हाट वी डू. You go in an order. So if you see that your sentences are actually, exhibiting an event, then at that point of time, you must follow that pattern. Your pattern cannot go haywire. So now, sometimes in the paragraph, you will find that there is a mention of events. These events will be about years, hours, months, and some transition words. When, before, after, later, generally these can be a hint words. You need to arrange them in a chronological order. So the moment you see 2 sentences and आपको दिख रहा है कि अच्छा ये बंदा भी सुबह उठ के लेट हो रहा है ऑफिस के लिए और उसके बाद वो ऑफिस पहुंचा कैब लेके, तो कैब तो बाद ही में लेगा, कैब लेगा फिर थोड़ी उठेगा सो के. So chronology भी कुछ होती है. That is, you will have to just place your logic over there to be able to see how the things are supposed to be going. Next, general to specific. Now, this is a very important rule when it comes to sequence, not pairs. Now, I'm going to be, I might just boggle your mind a little bit, but there is a very important mention that I have to say right now. And if in case you don't understand this, you let me know. Whenever we have a few things to ourselves, तो basic human tendency क्या करती है कि जब हमारे पास कोई चीजें होती है एंड आपको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि ये एक ऑड वन आउट है यार, इसको क्या करें, इसको आप डिस्कार्ड तो कर नहीं सकते. सो एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम व्हाट डू वी टेंड टू डू? वी टेंड टू टेक दोस थिंग्स एंड व्हाटएवर इज अ मिसफिट और व्हाटएवर इज समथिंग दैट वी डोंट नो और डोंट वांट, उसको हम लोग हमेशा एंड में लगा देते हैं. राइट? ये बेसिक होता है, ये हर इंसान का अप्रोच होता है. That when you have a cluster to yourself and you have something which is not fitting in the right rhythm of it, you always put it towards the end. Now this can work for everything or every scenario, but not parajumbles. You cannot fit the last sentence in the last, I mean the misfit sentence in the last. Understand why? पैराजम्बल्स में जब हमारे पास कोई भी चीज दी रहती है, so again if this is our excerpt, right, and if the author has ejected lines from here and given you the 4 lines, now what is unlikely is, or what is going to be a little bit of a catch is going to be कि आपको ये शायद नहीं पता. Now again हो सकता है कि आपके पास obvious opener ना हो. अब आपको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि यार इसको लगाएंगे कहाँ इस लाइन को. तो आपको पता, नाउ यू आर वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट दैट दिस लाइन के बाद तो ये वाली आएगी, इस लाइन के बाद यू आर वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट ये वाली आएगी. क्यों? क्योंकि इससे लगी में लगी बात ये आ गई, इससे में लगी लगी बात ये आ गई. अब बचा एक सेंटेंस और आपको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि यार ये सेंटेंस तो कहीं भी नहीं आ रहा है, इसको कहाँ लगाए. अब आदत क्या होती है हमारी, लास्ट में लगा देने की. बट पैराजम्बल्स में जो चीज एक मिसफिट होती है, दैट इज द वन सेंटेंस दैट इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी एनीवेयर will always go on top. Understand? For the simple reason why, because when they extract a topic from in between and they give it to you might not know what the original sentence is going to be. Why? Because आपने ये part तो कभी मिला ही नहीं ना. Whatever is going to be said in this line will have its connection with this sentence. But you never got that part. जब आपको वो part ही नहीं मिला, how are we to know what the sentence is to be? But इससे में लगी बात मिल गई, इससे में लगी बात मिल गई, इससे में लगी बात मिल गई. तो अब इसके नीचे तो वो रैंडम सेंटेंस आ ही नहीं सकता ना, क्योंकि उस यहाँ पे तो जो आएगा इट हैज टू बी something which has its hint from the previous sentence, which is why the one sentence that doesn't fit anywhere must always go on top, right? Now I'll take an easier example so that you all don't get too worked up on this. आप लोग मूवी देखने गए, से फॉर एग्जाम्पल आपके पहले के आधे घंटे की या 1 घंटे की मूवी छूट गई, समहाउ 1 घंटे की छूट गई, आप जाके पिक्चर हॉल में बैठ गए. द मोमेंट यू सिट, डू यू थिंक यू सडनली स्टार्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग द फर्स्ट सीन? पहले सीन से मूवी समझ में आने लगती है क्या? नहीं आती. बट पहले सीन को देखने के 2 मिनट के बाद से मूवी समझ में आने लगती है, बिकॉज अब जितने सीन्स होंगे वो लगे में लगे होंगे. तो अब अगर मैंने बोला कि यार जो तुम्हारा फर्स्ट सीन है वो तुम कहाँ लगाओगे, you're never going to put it towards the end, right? You will always put it towards the start. So while doing parajumbles, the one thing which you can't fit anywhere must go on top. It should never be anywhere around later. Now, getting back to which is why the rule of sequence is always called general to specific. आप हमेशा पहले generic बातें करते हो फिर specific आते हो. It can apply itself in both the ways. Generic can be an odd sentence also, and generic can be a general sentence also. तो अगर मुझे दिल्ली के बारे में बात करनी है और मुझे बात करना है कि दिल्ली इज अ फूडीज पैराडाइज, पर उसके पहले एक लाइन है इंडिया पे और वो बोलता है कि इंडिया का नेशनल कैपिटल है दिल्ली, तो पहले इंडिया आएगा फिर दिल्ली आएगा, क्योंकि दिल्ली इंडिया में आ सकता है, इंडिया दिल्ली में नहीं आ सकता है. General to specific. So if I want to talk about the Ambani family, and of course the pre-wedding that happened of Radhika, so then at that point of time I will Anant and Radhika, so then at that point of time I'm going to begin with first talking about the Ambani family, क्योंकि उसकी family में 2 लोग आए ना, it will never be the other way around. So the descriptions must always be from general to a very specific description. So your series must always be like that. On to the next question answer. ये बहुत easy rule होता है. अगर आपको दिख गया कि एक sentence है which ends on a question, the next should always be the answer to that question, right? अच्छा, कभी कभी style of writing भी ऐसी हो जाती है कि back to back 2-3 questions पूछ लेते हैं, but ultimately तो answer ही आएगा ना. So question answer hint simply says that if the sentence is probing or giving out a question, then at that point of time, the next sentence have to be an answer, and both of these 2 sentences have to be a mandatory pair. They cannot belong otherwise. Next, check for conclusive last sentences. Acha. If you all remember, the first rule that we studied was look for the obvious opener. कभी कभी obvious opener थोड़ा सा difficult हो जाता है पकड़ने में. उस समय आप लोग क्या कर सकते हो, आप लोग obvious closure पकड़ सकते हो. क्लोजर्स में मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स आपके पास कुछ हिंट वर्ड्स निकल आते हैं. वर्ड्स लाइक thus, hence, hence, so, eventually. तो ये सब टाइप के जो वर्ड्स होते हैं ना, ये मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स दे ट्राइंग टू बी टॉकिंग अबाउट सो इन द एंड, अल्टीमेटली एंड स्टफ लाइक दैट. सो द मोमेंट यू सी सच थिंग्स यू नो दैट ये लास्ट है. तो अगर आपको दिख रहा है कि यार ओपनर तो ऑप्शंस में समझ में ही नहीं आ रहा है क्योंकि बहुत सारे हैं, या both of those are like equally confusing, then at that point of time you can go back to the closure and be able to see कि कौन से सेंटेंस से वो खत्म हो रहा है. और अगर आपके पास एक ही ऑप्शन है, जैसे अगर बी में आपसे 10 से बात हुई है एंड यू रीड दैट सेंटेंस एंड यू नो कि ये तो खत्म हो रहा है, then the last sentence can simply be closing with B. Out of the four options, I'm going to see how many end with a B. जैसे ही मुझे दिख गया which ones end with a B, I know that that is what is going to be my correct answer. On to the next, tenses hint. Tenses hint simply say that sometimes grammar can also be, can give you quite a headway. So it is not always necessary that you have to be reading the sentences to be able to find out. Now, when you see कि कोई चीज अगर आपके past tense में है and अब उसी का present आ रहा है, तो you know that is how the arrangement is going to be. क्योंकि sentences में उसी singular topic पे arrangement हमेशा होता है past, present और future का. ये सीरीज चेंज नहीं होती. जब इसमें से कोई एक चीज गायब होती है, so you jump on to the next. तो अगर मेरे पास गांधी जी पे कोई टॉपिक है एंड आई हैव गांधी जी का बर्थ ईयर पहले है, फिर उनका फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल कब हुआ और फिर उनका असैसिनेशन कब हुआ, तो फर्स्ट आई विल फॉलो द सेम क्रोनोलॉजी. इट विल ऑलवेज बी पास्ट, प्रेजेंट एंड फ्यूचर. बट प्लीज नो द सब्जेक्ट शुड बी द सेम फॉर इट. इट कैन नॉट बी रैंडम सब्जेक्ट्स का पास्ट, प्रेजेंट, फ्यूचर. नो, दैट्स नॉट हाउ इट इज. The next is the order of narration. Okay, this is very important. Order of narration का मतलब होता है sentences आपके उसी order में रहेंगे जिस order में author ने बोला है. तो अगर मेरे पास एक sentence है जो बोलता है I like eating apple, banana, mango, and then I have three sentences on one on apple, one on banana, the other on mango. How must I put the series? The series will always follow what the author wants. So the author said apple, मेरा पहला लगेगा apple. Likewise, apple, banana, mango, that is exactly the series, that is exactly the flow of the series which is supposed to be. So it must take an apple first, a banana first, and then. So this is what is called the rule of narration. जिस order में narrate किया है, उसी order में हमारे sentences भी आएंगे. Next, conjunctions hint. Favorite go-to rule. Conjunctions are words that connect to sentences. अब देखो, क्या हम लोग ने कभी भी किसी सेंटेंस को कंजंक्शन पे एंड होते देखा है? हैव यू एवर सीन अ सेंटेंस एंड ऑन अ येट, बट, सो? एंड होते हैं क्या? कभी नहीं, पर स्टार्ट हो सकते हैं ना. एंड नाउ दैट आई नो कि कोई भी कंजंक्शन बेसिकली क्या करता है, ब्रिज करता है, ज्वाइन करता है टू सेंटेंसेस को. तो अगर मुझे दिख गया कि मेरे पास कोई एक सेंटेंस है एंड दैट सेंटेंस इज एंडिंग विद अ कंजंक्शन, देन आई एम सुपर क्लियर अबाउट दैट वन थिंग, and which is going to be that I have the second half. I simply have to find the first half. Acha, first half ढूंढते समय भी guys, be very very careful about the fact that you have to identify the idea. तो say for example अगर but हुआ या yet हुआ, ये दोनों है conjunctions of contrast. Contrast मतलब अगर यहाँ नेगेटिव बात हुई है ना, तो यहाँ होनी चाहिए पॉजिटिव बात. So obviously you guys are smart enough, इतना तो तुम लोग clearly समझोगे कि how exactly must the conjunctions be used. And the last rule that we have are called the rule of keywords. Pay very close and very magnifying attention to these words. Words like also. Also का मतलब होता है second. जैसे मैंने बोला मुझे ये चाहिए और मुझे वो भी, तो भी तो बाद में चाहिए ना, पहले ये चाहिए. So the main thing comes first, then is followed by the other. TWO2. So if I say I want to eat cake and pastry too, I want to eat cake first. So my sentence of cake will come first, then will come the pastry. Likewise, firstly, secondly, lastly, thus, majority, minority, पहले हमेशा majority आता है. Consequently, subsequently, सब second order of statements होते हैं. ये कभी first नहीं हो सकते. So sometimes these little words can always tell us what the sentence is or how the series must be. Now, these were our rules of the mandatory pair. Like I said, they come in very handy and they are highly applicable. So, you are to just pick that one hint, find your pairs, That is minimum two sentences, and then see which of the following is going to be a favorable sentence. The moment you find the sequence right, there it is. You have the answer to yourself. Now, what we're now going to do is, now that we have talked in abundance and a very, very long, almost like a monotonous lecture of how it should be. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump onto the questions and see if we are able to put all of this to practice also or not. Now, we're going to be starting with both the practices. So, we'll begin with a sentence jumble and eventually move on to parajumbles. Now, I want all of you guys to please have your hands on the chat box so that you can keep popping the answers to me and we can have a super interactive session and end on a highlight. First one, to the total cost of the production in reasonable proportion, advertising costs are no longer. Now, this is clearly a sentence jumble. Why is it a sentence jumble? Because it's only one sentence which is broken up into four parts and वो four parts को ऊपर नीचे आगे पीछे करके स्क्रैम्बल करके जंबल करके दे दिया है. हमें क्या करना है? We have to put it in the order in which the sentence has complete sense plus tense. सेंस प्लस टेंस का मतलब होता है सेंटेंस टेंस सेंस भी बनाएगी और ग्रामेटिकली भी वो सेंटेंस करेक्ट होगा. Now, if you see, I have all of the set. I have three sentences that begin with R and one option that begins with a P. Now, पहले P वाला try कर लेते हैं. Now, it says to the total cost of product and then we have S. To the total cost of product are no longer. अब I know ये तो subject verb disagreement है ना. Total cost singular है तो R कैसे लग सकता है? So this is not an option for me. Which means मेरे को start R से ही करना है. Now over here, let's see advertising costs. Now I'm going to see the next S. Now advertising costs are no longer, and then I have S के बाद Q, are no longer in reasonable proportion to the total cost of the product. I think I have my answer right there. The correct answer will have to be option A. Now I think I was lucky. पहली बार में ही मुझे sentence मिल गया because opener मिल गया, advertising cost, and then obviously cost क्या था? Are no longer, क्योंकि यहाँ पे obviously we're talking about the cost. Cost is in plural. We then have Q in reasonable proportion, and then you have the option P to the total cost of the product. So advertising cost बहुत ज़्यादा होता है, total cost of the product बिल्कुल भी उसके proportion में नहीं होता है, and that is what is going to be the sentence. Let's see the second one. Now, in the second one, again, unsurpassed power, modern society in women enjoy. Now, I have R से start हो रहा है, S से start हो रहा है, S से start हो रहा है और P से start हो रहा है. So now over here, I'm simply going to see which of the following is going to be the right sentence. Let's see. Now, let's begin with R. I cannot start with the in. I know grammar is not going to allow me. So, A stands eliminated, right? Now, let's try S. Now, S says women enjoy. I will just read the first one. Women enjoy, and then you have R, which is in, and then it says P, in unsurpassed power, and then modern society. Now, over here, the moment you say women enjoy in unsurpassed power modern society, now that is also not making sense because वो in का placement गड़बड़ हो रहा है. मॉडर्न सोसाइटी के पहले इन लग सकता है क्योंकि preposition एरिया के पहले लगेगा ना, तो ये भी नहीं हो सकता है, which means our correct answer will have to be option C. And let's just read C. Now over here, women enjoy unsurpassed power in modern society. So yes, the answer is going to be option C. Okay, now I'm going to keep quiet for the third one, and I want you guys to tell me what you think the answer is going to be. Try your hands, guys. Let's see the third one. Give me an answer. What do you think the answer for the third sentence is supposed to be? Take your time and let me know. First, read all the sentences and then begin with the permutation of it. Okay, so we have two C which has come in. Okay, that is for the second one. We're on the third one, Sky. So just jump on to the third one, my dear. Now I'm waiting for you guys to give me an answer for the third one, please. Okay, so we have an option that is coming up, which is going to be option D. Now, I'm just going to use option D to be able to see it just the way. Now, D begins with American working women earn as much as men. Perfect. That is just what the answer is going to be. So, makes the most clear cut sentence. It is supposed to be American working women earn as much as men. Okay, let's try the fourth one now. You guys are really getting a hang of it. Let's see. Let's try the fourth one and see what the correct answer is to be. Fourth को सारे sentences पढ़ो and then be able to see which of the following is it. Like, okay, we've already done the third one, Sky. Let's get to the fourth one now and see the answer for the fourth one. Okay. All right, then let us see. We'll begin with, so we have P and then we have S. Now, P says adult programs, children watch. Now, that is not how it is. So, adult programs are watched by children should have been the correct answer. Adult program, children watch, ये तो कोई arrangement ही नहीं होता है, so this is not what it is going to be. Right? Now, let's try this P also एक बार. Now, P इसमें बोलता है कि adult programs more than children watch adventure programs more than children watch adult program. No, that's not correct English. That is not how it is going to be. So both of the options of P have been eliminated. अब हम लोग S में देखते हैं. Children watch. So I'm trying this series first. Children watch and then we have Q. Adult programs more than adventure programs. Perfect. This makes complete sense. Ab, now that I already have the answer to myself, I know that the correct option has to be option B. And let's try the fifth one now. Now over here, I'm going to start with P and S. So starting with P, P says for its workers, and then we have an R. For its workers has fought. ये तो subject verb disagreement हो गया. Workers के साथ has कैसे लग सकता है? Workers के साथ तो have लगना चाहिए. So ये तो नहीं हो सकता हमारा option. Right? अभी P और S को भी देख लेते हैं. For its workers organized labor and one. So now for its workers organized labor and one. This is completely, a complete grammatical mismatch. So this also cannot be. Which means मेरे को start तो S से ही करना है अपनी series को. अब एक बार S लगा के देखते हैं. Now organized labor for its workers and one. Now for its workers and one again makes no sense. So then I'm left with only one option which has to be the answer. But एक बार उसको पढ़ लेंगे हम लोग. So fifth वाला एक बार पढ़ के देखते हैं यहाँ पे. Organized labor has fought for and won protection and benefits for its workers. So clearly the correct answer has to be option D. Good job guys, you all did a fairly good job. Let's start with the next. Now starting with the next parajumble. Now this is again a sentence jumble, but this is of a different variant. Now if you see over here, the first part of the sentence cannot change. वो अपनी ओरिजिनल जगह पे दिया है. So we cannot do anything to that one part. But basis the opening, we have to see which of the following is going to be the correct one. So I will just read one for you so that you know, and then maybe you can try 7 and 8. So now on to the sixth one, it says, all religion are. So we have P, two options with P, two options with S. तब देखते हैं. All religion are to advance the cause of peace. Okay, all right, I'm just reading this. Are to advance the cause of peace, justice, and of freedom in a whole partnership bound together. No, मतलब ये ठीक है, आइडिया निकल के आ रहा है, बट इसमें कोई ग्रामर की कनेक्टिविटी नहीं है. So this cannot be an answer. Let's see the other one. All religion are to advance the cause of peace in a whole partnership. Justice, now again in a whole partnership justice, ये भी बिल्कुल ही वो नहीं बना रहा है, मीनिंग नहीं बना रहे, तो उसको भी हटा देते हैं. Which means start तो हमारा S से ही होना है, right? So all religion are bound together to advance the cause of peace in a whole partnership justice. Now again this also makes no sense. So then what we're left with becomes the answer. So all religion are bound together in a whole. Now obviously you're bound, which means you're going to be held together. So are bound together in a whole partnership to advance the cause of peace, justice, and of freedom. ना हमेशा गाइस याद रखना सेंटेंस जंबल में वो लोग पंक्चुएशंस हटा देंगे, जानबूझ के punctuations हटाए जाएंगे so that it becomes a little challenging for us. So ideally over here peace के बाद comma होना चाहिए था, justice and of freedom. So these are the three tenets of religion, and the fact that religion comes together to be able to propagate three of these things. That is what the sentence is trying to be telling us, which is why the answer is going to be option D. Let's try the seventh one. Now it's upon you guys. Why don't you give me what the answer for the seventh one is going to be? I will wait till I hear for an answer. Sixth is already done. I need you to get on to the seventh one, please. Let's go, guys. Seventh वाला एक बार try करते हैं और देखते हैं कि हमारा आंसर क्या होने वाला है उसमें. Okay, so we have D coming in. I'm going to read D very quickly. Now, 72 people, including several women and children, were affected by food poisoning. Sorry. I missed match. I'm going to read it again. 72 people, and then we have R, including several women and children of the Tilak Vihar area of West Delhi, were affected by food poisoning, reports PTI. Perfect, guys. And that is exactly what the answer is going to be. So it's talking about how a report has stated that 75 people, including several women and children, have been affected by food poisoning. Okay, let's try the eighth one now. What do you all think the answer for the eighth one is going to be? Again, let me remind you, you cannot change this sentence. Basis this sentence, यहाँ से continue करना है तुमको. So which one do you think is it going to be? Okay, so we have D. No, okay, we don't have the answer as yet. D is again for the seventh one. The eighth one, guys, quickly. Let me know what the answer is to be. Now, peasants यहाँ पे होते हैं जो काम करते हैं जो लोग. Okay, let's see this. Okay, so we have A. There must be countries now in which peasants are going without substantial means so that a lot of young person can spend several years in universities. Very good. The answer is going to be option A. The sentence clearly says that nowadays what is happening is the peasants are working just so that the younger ones can go to the college. All right. With that, we come to an end to sentence jumbles. Starting from question number 9, we're now going to begin with what are called parajumbles. What you see in front of you are 6 randomly placed sentences. Out of these, we have to see which of the following is going to be the correct series. Now, I will do the first one with you. The remaining ones, of course, you guys are going to start doing it together. Now, over here, the moment I see the options, now before reading the sentences, what I can also do is I can just read for an opener, just to be a little more clear about how the idea is to be. So if I just see the options, I see all of the options begin with an A, which means by default, I have to be starting with an A, right? So now, as a practicing psychiatrist, I hence listen to just about every human problem under the sun, right? So it's like I have to listen to every human problem, which is going to be under the sun. Now, under the sun is going to be whatever that one person is going to come across. Now, I will first read all the sentences to be able to identify which of the following is going to be the correct. But the people who come seeking help do have one thing in common. Okay, so we're still talking about people. यहाँ पे भी people है, and then I listen to, okay, no two troubles are alike since human nature is infinitely complex. Usually, in the first visit, these people, okay, so we're again talking about people, blurt out their frustration. Each is struggling to overcome some problem and failing. The advice I often give these people is quite simple that it never fails to startle them. Don't try. So see again, end F से होना है, start A से होना है, तो obvious opener भी मिल चुका है, obvious closure भी मिल चुका है. अब चलो हम लोग options को लगा के देखते हैं which of the following is going to be the right answer for me. Now, as a practicing psychiatrist, I hence listen to just about every human problem under the sun. Be it whatever, I listen to everything. नाउ दैट यू आर ट्राइंग टू बी टॉकिंग अबाउट भाई कौन सी प्रॉब्लम सुनी, तो अब अगली भी तो प्रॉब्लम्स में ही होनी चाहिए. सो विच मीन्स नेक्स्ट स्टेटमेंट जो हमारा आएगा वो होगा ऑप्शन सी. नो टू ट्रबल्स. ट्रबल्स क्या है? प्रॉब्लम्स ही तो है. तो देखो अभी भी प्रॉब्लम्स पे, ऊपर प्रॉब्लम से बात की ना, तो नीचे भी तो प्रॉब्लम्स पे ही हम लोग कंटिन्यू करेंगे. सो व्हेन यू से नो टू ट्रबल्स और नो टू प्रॉब्लम, नो टू प्रॉब्लम्स आर द सेम, एंड देन यू आर लाइक नो टू ट्रबल्स आर अलाइक सिंस ह्यूमन नेचर इज इनफाइनाइटली कॉम्प्लेक्स. दैट इज यू आर सेइंग कोई भी दो लोग की प्रॉब्लम्स एक जैसी नहीं होती क्योंकि ह्यूमन नेचर बहुत ज्यादा कॉम्प्लेक्स होता है. अगला देखते हैं. बट the people who come seeking help do have one thing in common. So now that you talked about the fact that there is such disparity between two humans, I mean, there's such differentiation, but there's something in common, right? The one thing which is going to be in common, it is then going to be each of us. Because अब आपने क्या किया? One thing in common, तो one पे बात करना है, तो each एक determiner हो गया ना हमारा. Now, each is struggling to overcome some problem and failing. We then have usually in the first of these, in the first visit, these people blurt out their frustration, the advice I often give. So the correct answer is going to be option B. It is okay, Zindain, you tried, and that is what really counts. Let's try the next one. Now, again, the first sentence begins with an A, the last ends with an F, so there's not really much that you can do about it. But read the other ones, make your pairs. I'll give you 1 minute to be able to browse through the idea, and post that is when we will begin with the options. Okay, chalo. All right. Now we're going to be talking about a couple of things here that we did discuss, but we're now going to also try and apply. Now, when I say learning is a risky business, that is what I have to start with. But I will first read all the sentences. In infancy, अब देखो हम infant, बचपन की बात कर रहे हैं. When the child is learning at a timely, phenomenal rate, he is also experiencing a shattering number of failures. So we talked about failures over here. But see the innumerable things he tries and see how little the failures discourage him. Okay, now this is also talking about failures. This is also talking about failures. So I know that B and C are obviously together because दोनों failures के बारे में बात करें. अब वो B C होगा या C B होगा वो बाद में देखेंगे. But ये दोनों तो साथ ही में आने. अब आगे पढ़ते हैं. With each of the passes, he will be less blithe about failure. We then have by the middle age. Okay, now one thing that I can say with surety is पहले आएगी infancy, फिर आएगा middle age. Obviously, right? Infant, adolescence, then of course you become adult. So अब जब E तो आना है 100% chronology का rule बोलता है कि B के पहले तो E आ ही नहीं सकता. You can't go in a descending order. You have to go in an ascending order. So if I have any of the options जिसमें E B के पहले है, वो मेरा आंसर नहीं हो सकता. यहाँ पे देखो ये B यहाँ पे है, E बाद में, ठीक है. यहाँ B and E, यहाँ B and E, but यहाँ पे E और B. तो अब ये तो नहीं है. Because it's not possible. Right? Now, by the middle age, he tends increasingly to avoid things he has never tried or tried but failed because he carries in his mind a tremendous catalog of things. Okay, such fears of failure. Now see, fears of failure, that means iska preceding line jo hona hai wo kya hona hai? The kinds of or the types of fear. If you just see catalog, tremendous catalog, catalog kya hota hai? जिसमें बहुत सारी चीजें होती है. So clearly in his mind he carries a catalog of things. So definitely the fears that that person tends to be having. Now I know E and F तो साथ में ही होने. So अब ये भी नहीं हो सकता. दो ही ऑप्शन है मेरे पास जो E and F साथ में है. अब फटाफट पढ़ लेते हैं to be able to see. Now I will first diffuse option A to be able to see. Learning is a risky business. In infancy, when the child is learning at a timely, phenomenal rate, he is also experiencing a shattering of failures. Makes sense. But see the innumerable things he tries. He पे अभी भी बात हो रही है, correct? And how little his failures discourage him. With each that passes, he will be less blithe about failure. By the middle age, he increases. Okay, this makes complete sense because it is talking in the chronological event. अब एक बार option B कर लेते हैं just to see where did we lose our logic. Now begins with an A, that is learning is a risky business. But see the innumerable things he tries. Now who's the he here? You cannot have a C and a B. Zindane, try and understand because ये बोलता है he. He कौन है यहाँ पे? Child. Noun pronoun ना. First will come your noun, then will come your pronoun. Did you get this? तो हो ही नहीं सकता ना. C भी तो हो ही नहीं सकता था. This was not possible. So this cannot be an option. The correct answer has to be option A. Did you get your mistake? समझ में आया? Where exactly did you go wrong then? Okay. All right. And let's just try one last for the day before we run out of time. And I will give you a moment to be able to find what the correct answer is likely to be. And then we will begin with the discussion. Just the last one, guys. Please begin. Now, again, pay attention. A से start हो रहा है, E से खत्म हो रहा है, सब में. So you can't be changing that. But, like I said, अब देखो यहाँ पे मैं एक hint देती हूँ. सबसे पहले तो तुम लोग एक obvious closure ढूंढो इसमें. Obvious opener difficult थोड़ा सा दिख रहा है मेरे को. But एक obvious closure का hint word है जो तुरंत दिख रहा है मुझे. Can anybody write that word in the chat box? Can you guys tell me what the obvious closure over here is going to be? Which word are we looking at? We're looking at the word therefore. So when I say it is vital, therefore, that the government and the leader of the opposition, now, when I read it also, I understand कि ये conclusive sentence है. The commission must report its finding in the 3 months. So now that I know कि E and F tend to make sense and this is pretty much a closure, E and F जिसमें नहीं है वो मेरा आंसर नहीं हो सकता. ये दोनों सीरीज गई. Right? अब A, B, D, A, B या A, D. चलो एक बार देख लेते हैं. We have seen too many JPCs to know exactly what fate will befall this one, and a judicial inquiry will take months, if not years, to conclude. So, हम लोग ने बहुत सारा देखा and it's going to take months. Let's see. The delay in this will badly. Now, what is this? Now, I do not know what this is. I need to know because this is a pronoun. So, I need to know what the delay is. Now, A and B मैं बोला तो A बताना चाहिए कि क्या है. But this, the delay in this तो बोल ही नहीं रहा है. Right? Now again, फिर भी पढ़ लेते हैं. The delay in this will badly affect the morale of the forces and is certain to hamper our defense preparedness. What we need is a quick inquiry which can be followed up with a strong action to completely structure the defense procurement system. Okay, now that we've talked about a system. Cleaning up the audience tables of defense procurement is an urgent task. Now, ये डिफेंस और ये डिफेंस जब दोनों लाइंस मेरी डिफेंस पे ही बात कर रही है तो क्लियरली मेरे को साथ ही में चाहिए सी और डी. यहाँ पे भी सी और डी साथ में, यहाँ पे भी डी और सी साथ में. ठीक है. अब when I say the audience tables, A with a capital, which means this is a proper noun, and my rule says proper nouns come first, nouns then pronouns. So अब between C and D, my combination has to be a D and a C. Audience tables of defense procurement, and फिर उसके बाद हमने defense procurement की बात कर दी, completely restructuring. अब किस sentence में D और C साथ में है? मैंने यहाँ पे ढूंढ लिया कि D और C साथ में यहाँ है. अब मैं सारे options एक बार पढ़ के देख लेती हूँ इसमें. Now we have seen too many JPCs to know to know exactly what fate will befall this one, and a judicial inquiry will take months, if not years, to conclude. Cleaning up the audience tables of defense procurement is an urgent task. What we need is a quick inquiry which can be followed up with a strong action to completely restructure the defense procurement system. And then after that we have a delay in this. Delay किसका है? Procurement का. Delay अगर होगा will affect the morale of the force and is certain to hamper cause and effect. B and C have a cause and effect. And it is vital therefore that the government and the leader of the opposition set up a statutory commission. Commission की बात हो गई तो यहाँ भी commission हो गया. तो E और F definitely mandatory pair थे हमारे पास. So our answer is going to be option D. And with that, guys, we come to an end of today's class. I hope you all understood all of the things that we did. We practiced questions to be able to apply those strategies. Well, I'm also hoping that you understood how exactly should you be coming onto the, eliminating the options and then coming. Always remember, guys, Parajumbles is about exploring the options as much as you can. Don't get into the rat race of figuring out how to be deploying the options. Series अपने आप आ जाएगी, pairs पहले बना लेना. Right? Okay, guys. Do watch the video again if in case you have any confusion and that you'd want clarity onto the concepts. I hope you have at least noted down the mandatory pairs because just keeping them in one corner and to be able to go back and revise can be quite it can give you quite a clarity, quite a lot of clarity as to how parajumbles need to be approached on the whole. Thank you so much, everybody. And I'm going to see you probably next week or maybe in a couple of days. And we will take up another topic for discussion. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everybody.